All right, good evening. Welcome, everybody. I haven't taught in a while in this way, so it's really nice to be back in this type of experience with you. So it's the beginning of a pretty powerful journey if we keep this going, and I would really love to. So you're more than welcome to interact, to give feedback. Let's make this what we want it to be. This is a Course in Miracles class. This is the first one. It's May 4th, 2025. And we'll probably go for about an hour and a half or so. I'm going to start with a little bit of overview, a little orientation, a little bit of PowerPoint, probably do some teaching about A Course in Miracles, definitely what is A Course in Miracles tonight. And then I definitely want to open it for Q&A and discussion. I was saying before we officially started, I used to teach A Course in Miracles study groups at where some of you went to our school way back when in Gainesville, Florida. In the Millhopper area of Gainesville, I used to teach A Course in Miracles study group, and I always considered it more of a Knights of the Round Table model. Of Course in Miracles, clearly, if you're not familiar with it, but so you know, uses the word God. So we're going to use that word here. And it honors we're all children of God, that we are all equals. It's not a guru type of model. So none of that here. If we're all sitting around in a big circle, you're more than welcome to have the course open, to read passages, to share insights. But obviously, in a Zoom meeting room, I have to facilitate the process. But please know the first intention is we're all equals, just as much as I do about this stuff, even if you haven't studied A Course in Miracles. And the course itself says you're not lacking anything, right? Everything you need is inside of you. There's really nothing to learn because it's all about love, and you already know what love is. So I like to start with a brief meditation, nothing too in depth yet, but as we move through the class and there's a passage I do feel inspired to teach from, then we can certainly um, go into meditation at that point. But I invite you to close your eyes now, and let's just take a moment to connect to why we're here, what's really most important. So with your eyes closed, simply breathing. And I invite you to bring your attention into the present moment. It's about 67 or so people here. So I invite you to feel as if you're in the same room with everybody. In A Course in Miracles, minds are joined. We are really all one. So I invite you to come into what A Course in Miracles calls the holy instant, and to let your breath be that which guides you into the here and now. I invite you to release the past, to breathe and to notice where your mind or your heart, your emotions, your perceptions are largely rooted in the past. So with each breath, let's let everything go. If it moves, just let it go. And keep directing your attention here and now. And let's let go of any ideas about the future. The only place that could exist is in your mind, and same with the past. A Course in Miracles is very big on forgiveness, and we'll definitely explore that in the class. Really work to understand what it is. Yet once again, I invite you to forgive or let go. If you have thoughts, cares, questions, concerns, stressors, you're forgiving them. You're forgiving yourself. You're simply letting go of anything that's moving. The external world is moving. Just let it go. Let it be as it is. Observing your body. Notice however it feels now. You don't have to change it. Let's just let it be as it is. Breathing into the here and now. And becoming aware of your heart. As the great poet Rumi said, how is your heart? Just take inventory. How does your heart feel? You don't have to change it. Let's just allow what is to be what is. And directing your attention even closer to your very own awareness, becoming aware of your own mind. Breathing and simply watching the thoughts. And behind the thoughts, in between the thoughts, see if you can be aware that you're aware. There's a quiet consciousness that's always here. The Course in Miracles simply affirms, I am spirit. And today's lesson is actually, let me remember that I am one with God. Right here now. And see if you can be aware that the true essence of A Course in Miracles is indeed a return to love. It's not toxic positivity. Simply keep letting everything else go and see if you can experience what's left. Peace is what's left when you let everything else go. Anything that you think is upsetting you right now, if you just let it be lifted out of your mind, just give it up to Source. If you simply let it go, you'll discover, I could see peace instead of this. So it's okay to have any form of upset. Yet if you keep breathing into the holy instant, the here and now, observing your mind, your heart, your emotions, and keep letting go. It's my hope for you, my prayer for you by the end of this evening together, that you're experiencing deep, profound peace in your heart, that you're experiencing the divine love that permeates every square inch of this moment, and that you feel the incredible bliss and joy of all pervading spirit. Just keep forgiving, keep letting go. If it moves, just feel like it's being lifted up, taken away. If you don't want it, if it doesn't feel good, simply keep breathing and letting go. Anything your mind does that's an objection to being perfectly at peace right now, just keep letting that voice dissolve. Put your attention on the peace that's right here now. And remembering, you are indeed one with that source of peace, love, joy, and bliss right now. And I invite you again with eyes closed as we're settling into this class, to the study group, to connect with everyone who's here now. You're never alone. There are countless light workers, beings of light, miracle workers who are working to transform this world. And you're part of that right here now. And taking your time, breathing, being mindful of the moment, aware that you're aware. And you're welcome to engage with the class tonight any way you want to, eyes open or closed. You can feel like the whole thing's a meditation. So I'm going to invite you to have your eyes open or closed, but let's consider that's the end of formal meditation time. And yet, please make tonight a meditation for you. So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining me. I was saying before we started recording, during COVID, when we were all locked down, I started teaching my Anahat meditation system online, and I'll show you where that's available. And then recently watching the news and seeing what's happening, it definitely felt like a time to get back out there. So thanks for joining me in this. Again, first class for Course in Miracles group, so I'm really open to your feedback, your interaction, and we can make this better over time. So however tonight looks, just shoot me emails and just say, hey, can we do it this way? I'm happy to. With that said, I do have somewhat of a plan. So let me take you through a brief PowerPoint, and give you a sense of what we'll be doing here. We are recording. We'll be posting these at minimum on YouTube. So if you ever want to shut your camera or come in with just your initials, feel free. I understand. So the everything I do was actually once under the heading of Anahat Education. I'm sorry, Anahat Meditation Center. I started that all the way back in 1997. Yet as my career evolved, it became Anahat Education Group. I hope you take a moment to look at the star in the center of the lotus flower, which is your heart chakra. The six-pointed star is very integral in what I teach, and it will influence what we do in the class. And I put that on the graphic to promote tonight's class, that there's other ways we'll look at A Course in Miracles. I think a really wonderful approach to A Course in Miracles is to look at it from other traditions, because sometimes when the Course says something like God, well, what do we mean by God? But if we look at it from yogic traditions or Christianity or Buddhism or Judaism, we can get really profound insight beyond just looking at it through the Course. So sacred geometry is a big part of what I do, and that can definitely help you to understand A Course in Miracles. Anyway, this is the essence of the work that I do. Here's the class. It's totally free. It's open to the public. You can send family and friends. I intend to do it as long as people show up for quite a while. And again, we'll make it what we want it to be. We'll be exploring Course in Miracles. I've mentioned Anahat meditation. I'll tell you where you can learn more about it. I'm very big on life mastery, helping you to achieve success in every aspect of your life. Interpersonal hypnotherapy is our unique, deeply spiritually based approach to hypnotherapy. Like I said, we'll pull from other traditions, and I really enjoy looking at A Course in Miracles through yogic and Buddhist lenses, and generally just dedicating the classes to healing and enlightenment. The format, although it can evolve, is the introduction we're doing now, and I'll always do some announcements. It's a chance to let you know what we're doing with Anahat Education Group in the school and the association, and tons of free resources, as this class is free. We'll go 45, 60 minutes of kind of a lecture meditation format, but feel free to use the chat pod to ask questions or share your thoughts. If you really want to speak, just put up your hand and we'll see what we can do. I just ask that everybody, since this is open to the public, please only loving and harmonious, right? Only on our best behaviors. And then 30 to 45 minutes at the end or so of Q&A and discussion, because again, Knights of the Round Table model, not a anybody in a pedestal model. Topics we'll go into, and what I'm going to do is give you an overview of all these topics tonight as part of what we can do, but then each of these will be the classes that follow. So tonight is the overview. Next week, we'll look at clarification of terms and so on. Next week is Mother's Day, but that's a good chance. I'll still do the class if you want to be here for sure. A Course in Miracles uses only masculine language patterns. God is Father in A Course in Miracles, and one, because it was written in the 70s or scribed in the 70s. But I think it's also, like I've actually done in some of my books, it's just really hard to write in gender inclusive language, but A Course in Miracles is 100% inclusive of all beings. So it'll be nice maybe next week when we talked about the divine, we can call her mother instead of father. So Course in Miracles uses the word sonship, and which you can see at number 9. And of course that has masculine overtones. Yeah, it's just referring to the children of God. Unfortunately, language is often gender exclusive, but that's not the intention. I don't believe of A Course in Miracles at all. It's definitely not my intention. So we'll do clarification of terms on Mother's Day. I'll definitely spend time on what is forgiveness in A Course in Miracles and what is atonement. The Holy Spirit is absolutely worth talking about. Impossible to talk about A Course in Miracles without defining what that is and how do you interact with that beingness. But at the same time, looking at what does the Course mean by God, Father, Mother? What does the Course mean by Christ or the Christ consciousness? Doesn't quite use that term, but essentially that's what it's saying. And how does that relate to the sonship, which is us? We'll look at the Course in Miracles workbook lessons, and I'll definitely introduce you to them tonight. If you're new in the course, then you definitely want to consider doing the workbook lessons. We'll talk about revelation is a very profound idea in the course. The sonship, or the children of God, the one creation of God, the one child of God. In A Course in Miracles, God has one child, and that's us. Spirit and ego, or you could say spirit versus ego, but versus implies there's some fight, where really in A Course in Miracles, spirit is all that is, and ego is just a fantasy, just an illusion, just make believe, which is nice to know. Love and fear, finding true inner peace, which is largely what this is all about. The teaching, I need do nothing, which really relates to surrender and, in a sense, life mastery. How do you do less and accomplish more? Is a very beautiful Course in Miracles teaching. The guiltless world, generally just talking about guilt and being free from unforgiveness, free from vengeful thoughts or attack thoughts. A Course in Miracles has its own version of stages of growth that we'll look into at some point. From vigilance, which is in a sense when you really need to discipline yourself and say, I'm not happy. My mind isn't well trained. I don't have control of my thoughts, right? I'm not at peace. I don't know what my purpose is. I have no idea what's going on this planet. You need to be, the Course teaches, you need to be vigilant for God, for peace, for love. The yogis say you put both eyes on God, and vigilance is, in the yogic model, discernment, right? What's real, what's unreal, what's false, what's true, what's an illusion, what's reality. And in A Course in Miracles, truth is. There is something called truth. And we see now, and without getting political on you, people use that word, but A Course in Miracles has a very clear understanding of what do we mean by truth and why is it so valuable. Number 17, the lessons of the Holy Spirit. There are 3, and they're definitely worth understanding. 18, the meaning of the Last Judgment, which talks a lot about the atonement. When are we all done suffering? In Buddhism, there's what's called the Bodhisattva vow. And when you take that vow, you essentially say, sentient beings, beings who can feel, are numberless. I vow to save them all. A Course in Miracles basically says, until everyone's free of suffering, you are not done. Your mission isn't done, your purpose isn't done, your function, which is number 19, isn't done. And you have a mighty part to play in a very important purpose in A Course in Miracles. This teaching, if you're new to it, and I'm going to speak to you kind of as if you're new to it tonight, A Course in Miracles can give you so much meaning in life. I've never experienced a text, honestly, that I trust as much as this text. I trust it more than my books and most other scriptures out there. It is sublime, it's profound, and I hope if you're new to it, it'll radically change your life. And then from perception to knowledge. So without further ado, a little bit about A Course in Miracles, and then we'll go deeper into it after some announcements. The Course has a preface, and let's actually take a moment with it's not quite the preface, but it's the introductory first paragraph. And I will read it to you directly, but it's honestly probably memorized by now. Introduction. This is A Course in Miracles. Just take that in for a moment. At one point, a woman named Helen Schuckman, and the Course explains all about who she is. She's not the author of the Course. They call her the scribe. Her name is not on the cover. She was essentially, long story short, but again, the Course itself explains this story very clearly. Her and her partner, and in her place of business, they said they weren't doing well. They were psychologists, but they weren't happy. And they basically said there must be a better way. And then she just heard this voice inside at some point, and it said, this is A Course in Miracles, and basically write this down. It took 7 years for the text, the workbook, the manual for teachers, and the supplements to come through her. So about 7 years in the 70s, as I remember the story. But basically, there is a voice that you could say is channeling, or she's no longer alive, Helen Schuckman, or not in a body, but the voice that channeled through her. I'm going to encourage you to be open to who gave us A Course in Miracles. I think anybody who's been through it would just tell you, but keep that open-mindedness. Who's giving this? Because honestly, I don't believe it's a incarnate human being. There are certain channeled texts that are just awe-inspiring because there's no ego in them. They're coming from pure enlightened consciousness. And this book, in my humble opinion, is absolutely one of those. So think about, she's saying there's got to be another way to be free of suffering. And she hears, could everybody be sure to shut their mic? I think it's Catherine or Cece, if you don't mind, thanks. But if everybody could check, be sure your mic's off, thank you. So she's sitting there saying there's got to be a better way. And some higher, wiser voice says, this is a Course in Miracles. And then it goes on to say, it is a required course. So what does that mean? It's a required course. It's not saying you must believe in this, you're going to hell. There's none of that here at all. Required basically means the being who's offering this knows who you are, knows how beautiful you are, knows that you're pure love and pure light and pure joy and pure bliss, and knows you will eventually return to that. So it says it's required in this sense that until you learn the lessons it's teaching, then you're not going to experience love, which means until you learn forgiveness, you don't get to experience peace. It's not saying you must believe in this or you're going to be punished, or this is the only religion. It actually is not a religion. It's not a cult. And this, I hope you'll never think is a cult when you're interacting with me. A Course in Miracles, it says, is part of a universal curriculum. It's one approach to, we say, many paths to the top of the mountain. This would just say it's one path to the top of the mountain. So it says it's a required course in the sense that the top of the mountain is required, which means there's a limit to how much you can suffer. Eventually, you will return to peace, bliss, love, joy, oneness, purpose, and abundance, because miracles correct the false sense of lack. If you're experiencing any lack in your life, A Course in Miracles. If your life isn't harmonious and beautiful, A Course in Miracles. It doesn't have to replace a spiritual path or a religion. It is the most profound spiritual, psychological, and I use that word very consciously, the Course looks at your psyche. So it is psychological. I'm not saying we're psychotherapists. If you are, mazel tov. But basically, the Course honors that who you are is beautiful and miracles return you to that. And there's a limit to how much you're going to stay away from that. It says, however, only the time you take it is voluntary. All right, it's up to you you can delay for a very long time, but the Course teaches it's inevitable where you're going. Miracles just get you there faster. Okay, so the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means that you can only elect what you want to take at any given time. The Course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. I'll read that again. So those of you who've interacted with me in the field of hypnotherapy, I hope you'll understand what this line is all about. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. In yogic philosophy, we call those sanskars. And I knew about sanskars long before I found A Course in Miracles. And then when I said, oh, this is helping to clear those blockages to love, well, then it's worth exploring for sure. Love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. So again, A Course in Miracles is not ambiguous about who you are. There's a tremendous certainty that is, for me, so comforting because, science, we don't know everything. Thank God we have science, but religion, we're still all questioning so much, and that's great. But A Course in Miracles actually, in my humble opinion, again, really gives us simple answers about this is who you are, and this is how to get back to the truth of who you are. And you'll be glad to find out who you truly are. So that's your natural inheritance. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. This course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. I hope you breathe that in for a moment and feel it. Think about, what does that mean? Nothing real can be threatened. What's valuable to you, what's truly, truly valuable to you, can't be threatened. If that's true, that's awesome. And A Course in Miracles says thoughts are either true or not true. So I encourage you, when you hear statements from me or the Course or anybody else teaching, talking here, teaching here, A Course in Miracles says it's impossible not to teach. You're always teaching. The question is, what are you teaching? So when you interact with me here, you're teaching in your own way. And the question is, are you coming from spirit or you're coming from ego? Are you talking about that which is unreal, or are you talking about that which is real? And the beauty of A Course in Miracles is it's pointing to something which is real and eternal and always there. And yeah, it uses the word God for that. I could tell you in an introduction here, A Course in Miracles is extremely healing for recovering Christians or Catholics or whatnot. Those of you who've been around the block with that and you don't like the word God or the word Jesus or Christ, I was raised in a very reformed, totally non-religious Jewish household. So I never really got hurt by being raised in traditions that are very guilt-ridden and hellfire damnation. The Course in Miracles has none of that. And it actually clarifies many of the statements in the Bible that sound so horrific. And it says, well, when the ego reads this, it sounds like this. But when you read it through spirit, you can understand in this way. For instance, the Course quotes the Bible saying, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. And to the ego, that sounds terrible. But seeing through the eyes of spirit, what that means in a paraphrased way, it says, what that means is vengeance is not yours. Let that belong to God. If you want to consider justice or truth or what's fair, give that to God. Vengeance isn't for you to do. So in A Course in Miracles, and it doesn't say God is vengeful either, but A Course in Miracles clarifies those ideas in such beautiful ways. So nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. So again, I hope you'll take that in, that only peace actually exists. And when we're not experiencing that, we've done that to ourselves. And therefore, we can get back to peace no matter what. So with that said, that's the overview introduction. Let me just take you through some announcements and tell you who I am in case you don't really know, and why I'm teaching this class. So one thing about A Course in Miracles, it says, what qualifies you to be a teacher of A Course in Miracles? And as I understand it, there's actually only two qualifications. Number one, you want to. And I didn't really want to teach for a little while in this context again, but now I feel inspired. So thank you for listening and being here. But number one, you just want to. And part of what is inspiring me to want to do this is watching what's happening in the world right now. And honestly, to the United States. But not just that, if you watch the news, you know what's going on out there. And we need this more than ever, right? It's a pretty significant time. So I hope you sense like the importance of teachings like this with what we're seeing in the world. Okay, so number one, you can teach this if you want to. And then number two, the course just says you need to have gone through the workbook lessons because you have to teach within the context of A Course in Miracles to be a Course in Miracles teacher. So I've been through the lessons many, many times. I still do them. I'm on today's lesson, which I can tell you off the top of my head, but just so you know, today's lesson is 124, and it's let me remember I am one with God. Okay, so I do the lessons and I want to teach, and that's technically what qualifies a person for this. My background is in philosophy and religion. I was pretty much on the path of theology, but really monastic theology, philosophy and religion, largely studying the Eastern traditions, largely studying mysticism, the branches of spirituality and religion that help, to use this S word, the soul. Mysticism helps the soul to know God. Now, again, those are just words, but essentially, a mystic is someone who wants to experience God directly, not just through philosophy or religion. It's an esoteric type of path. It's a path of inward experience where you find the divine within yourself. That was my whole thing. And then I knew I didn't want to go into traditional academia. It was too limited to be able to teach freely. So I knew I wanted to help people to heal as well. So I went to two different Chinese medical schools. Beyond acupuncture is Reiki, massage, herbology, etc. But 5 years of my life was spent living in monasteries, ashrams, and in the Himalayas in different spiritual communities. I lived at Zen Mountain Monastery with dear John Daido Lori. A lot of you now know Michael Singer, Temple of the Universe. I've lived there on and off for about 5 years, so very close to those teachings and the temple and Mickey. International Meditation Institute in Kulu in the Himalayas with Swami Shama. He's no longer in a body, but he was a true living master, what they would call Sadguru. So I was honored to get to study with masters in the Himalayas. And I lived at Kripalu Center for Yoga and Health for about a year. So I've been teaching yoga and meditation since 1995. I would love for you guys to be in one of my yoga classes someday, but I don't really teach those anymore, especially in Zoom. But I've been teaching meditation literally since I was about 23 years old. When I heard about the course when I was a religion major, I was like, okay, great, but I'm learning a lot of stuff. And some of the people I was watching doing Course in Miracles, I wasn't impressed with. So I didn't quite get into it. And I didn't like the Christian overtones or the patriarchal language. But once I really open my mind to what it is, it really has become my one primary guiding like source of truth. If I'm going to say, is this true or not true? What does A Course in Miracles say? I constantly quote it in our school, the Institute of Interpersonal Hypnotherapy. And thank you. I'm honored to be teaching it here. A couple announcements. We are enrolling for the May class at the Institute of Interpersonal Hypnotherapy. That's our website, and you can go there for all the free resources I'm about to show you. So we do have a class coming up this May start. We have a conference for our Hypnotherapy Association, the IAIH, happening in Orlando. There are only 75 physical seats available. I'm pretty sure we'll fill those, but we're also going to be broadcasting online. So I do hope to see you there. There'll be a master class on the Thursday before with me. If you'd like to come in, open to the public, anybody's welcome to attend. Interpersonal Hypnotherapy CEU course for graduates. This is a very valuable next step. This was recently redone. I don't want to spend too much time here. I did write a new book. If you haven't read it yet, I do want to plug it. It's called Facilitating Enlightenment. The larger one here, Interpersonal Hypnotherapy is a Path of Self-Realization. It's the overview of our entire hypnotherapy training and how it really is A Course in Miracles based, how it's rooted in forgiveness and a return to love, and that truth is that there is a reality called peace and love, and any of us could return to it, to healing and enlightenment. The other book that goes into that is Interpersonal Hypnotherapy, is an overview. If you're interested in the style of meditation I teach, that's the Anahat Meditation System book and the Sacred Geometry Meditation book. If you're interested in a very direct path to peace, this is a free audiobook on YouTube, Peace Under All Circumstances. And if you're interested in a deeper dive into healing and enlightenment, my book, The Sutras on Healing and Enlightenment. Okay, there is something coming out in a week, and all of you who are here are on our email list. So keep an eye out for our email announcing this dashboard. It has A Course in Miracles built into it, the Life Mastery course built into it, videos that explain every section. Our training can be accessed here, association resources, session exchange, so you can do sessions with each other at no charge. So once you say you want to do that, you'll see a notification, like anybody who posts it. All our advertising and marketing tips are in here and resources, the Life Mastery course. You can go through A Course in Miracles in the new dashboard, as well as the online monastery, Anahat meditation, and lots of other resources. But for the sake of time, just keep an eye out for that. I reached out to A Course in Miracles when we were building the dashboard, and I got permission from the Foundation for Inner Peace, through their copyright of the material, to actually repost it in our dashboard. So you can go through A Course in Miracles workbook lessons completely in the dashboard. Again, within this week, look for an email. We are building interpersonal hypnotherapy clinics, so our graduates will be helping to promote your practices more. OnlineMonastery.com. You can check out OnlineMonastery.com, 60 hours of free meditation system training and teacher certification training. Illuminated Mind podcast, some recent ones with Alba Weinman and Medica Caravel were wonderful. If you want to be a guest, please reach out to me. And then there's all these free meditations, if you're not aware of them, that are on our website, and I've been posting on YouTube. Okay, that's the announcements. With that said, A Course in Miracles, a little bit more overview, and then let's take a little bit deeper dive. It has 5 significant sections. So what is A Course in Miracles? Well, it is a book, if you haven't caught on to that yet. It's not a course you have to pay for. I do have a 10-hour CEU workshop we did, but really you don't have to pay for A Course in Miracles. It's priceless. I definitely am not charging for this class. These teachings are meant to be given away. So there's a preface. The text itself is kind of thick. It's 669 pages, as I recall. And just picking it up and reading from the beginning is tough. A really good primer for A Course in Miracles, if you're new to it, is Mary Ann Williamson's A Return to Love. I think it's a beautifully written, humble book, and it really gets some of the main principles in a way that's very human and down to earth. Mary Ann Williamson's A Return to Love. And then eventually you can start diving into the text. You could open it to any page as you feel inspired, or start from the beginning. A very good way to start to absorb the text is through audio. It's free on YouTube. Just type into YouTube A Course in Miracles workbook audio. And I've listened to it literally hundreds of times. It just let those thoughts be in your head, because I guarantee pretty much these thoughts are going to be better than your thoughts. Our thoughts are pretty neurotic. And if you watch your mind, there's the amount of fear and doubt and confusion. A Course in Miracles is always better than that. So just listening to it is very healing and therapeutic, even if you don't understand it all. Again, as a philosophy and religion major, I was very arrogant about my knowledge of religious scripture and whatnot. I had to totally let that go because I thought this text was wrong. And that's only from arrogance. I'm convinced now, I hope in deep humility, that I sincerely believe every word of this book is true. It's not talking about history. It's talking literally in its own language about the plan for salvation. In Sanskrit, that's called moksha or liberation. The term in yogic philosophy is jivana mukta, a fully liberated soul. Is there such a thing? Yes, the great masters absolutely teach. There's something called liberation. Liberation from what? Pain and suffering. And the Course says if any teacher is guiding you in every way, in every possible way to be free of pain and suffering, it would be wise to listen. So in deep humility, I would say, don't let the Christian overtones get in the way. Don't let the patriarchal language get in the way. If you understand what it's doing to you, you literally get to spend every day happy and at peace. The Course brings your mind to a place where you wake up every day and you're just happy and life is wonderful. And even though there's challenges, because there are, you're good. And if you're not good, you know how to get back to good really fast. I was meditating with my partner I think it was last night. She and I were with this new home theater is wonderful. We were sitting like in the dark, meditating. I was taking us through A Course in Miracles. And I was like, okay, I see what's happening in the news and that's disturbing to me. And she was working through something bothering her. And I just took us through Course in Miracles like I intend to do tonight. We were both totally at peace, even though you can think about the worst things you could imagine and still find at least profound peace. But the Course in Miracles says that you are one with God right now. God is love. And God being love is also happiness. It's not a conditional thing. It seems conditional because of the way most of us are wired. But the beauty of this is peace is always available to you. Beyond the text is the workbook for students. If you haven't done it, it's almost the middle of the year. We're in May now. So it's good to start it at the beginning of the year, but start it now if you want to. If I've inspired somebody who's never done the workbook lessons to do them, please do. You can go to acim.org, acim.org. You can see the lessons there on a new dashboard I've mentioned. You'll be able to access the lessons there or just pick up the book. In the book, it's one lesson per day and be patient with it, trust it. Essentially, it says you've given that entire year 365 lessons whenever you start, but really consider every January 1st, you just start the lessons and you give the whole year to God. Your life becomes so blessed you maybe can't even imagine just how simple the teachings are and how beautiful of what it can do for you. So I can't recommend enough. Do one workbook lesson a day. The Manual for Teachers is extremely valuable with its clarification of terms to be able to, I think the Manual for Teachers is actually a little bit easier to understand than the text itself. And then the two supplements, highly recommended, especially if you're in the facilitation fields. The first supplement is called Psychotherapy, Purpose, Process, and Practice. It's not just for formal professional psychotherapists. It's awesome for hypnotherapists or life coaches. Anybody who's facilitating process would benefit from reading the psychotherapy manual. And the other supplement is called The Song of Prayer. Prayer, forgiveness, and healing. And that's definitely a good dive into like a synopsis of forgiveness in A Course in Miracles and of course prayer. With that said, here are the topics that I thought we could go into a bit. So first class taking a little longer than I expected, but I do want to open it up to discussion and Q&A. So let's actually take a moment and do that. I can come back to this slide. Any questions you're sharing from anybody who's here? I'll take a moment, take a drink. Any questions about A Course in Miracles or places you might want to go with this tonight? Okay, feel free to use the chat pod at any time if you'd like to interact with me. But if you do want to talk, by all means. So let's look at some of these terms and go a little deeper into the overview of things. So I gave you the overview. I think that's number one. Thanks, Anne-Marie. Glad you're here as well. Anne-Marie Morales is also a guest on my Illuminated Mind podcast for those of you who want to check it out. So clarification of terms. Let's qualify the G word here. When I teach at our hypnotherapy school, I always have to respect that some people just don't like the word God. But this isn't the hypnotherapy school, although I'm never divorced from it, obviously. This really is just a Course in Miracles. I'm going to say a spiritually minded study group or class. And we're going to use the word God for sure without qualifying it. Again, it might be masculine terms at times, but really just consider when the Course says Father, also mother, and basically that is beyond gender, of course. When it says God, it's referring to that which created you, and the Course actually does teach that you are a creation of God. It's not speaking evolution because it's not talking about physical matter. It honors that you're a spirit. So a main teaching in A Course in Miracles, and it would be worth having on this list, is called level confusion. Two levels, spirit, body. Keep it that simple. There's who you are as spirit, and then there's your body. But you forget who you are, and you think you're a human being. That's you might call the fall. Or, of course, in the Bible, Adam and Eve leaving God, essentially, is the fall. But in A Course in Miracles, that's called the detour into fear. Okay, so God created you in A Course in Miracles. So you're saying, but is it creation or evolution? It's creation. In Conversations with God, Neil Donald Walsh asked God, so what is it? Is it creation or evolution? And the voice for God in Conversation with God said, it's creation. We're not talking about the earth when we're talking about who you are in A Course in Miracles. So level confusion would be to say, I'm a body, therefore I'm evolving. That's fine. The body can evolve. Big deal. Who are you? Your spirit, you're eternal, you're not evolving. You are a perfect creation of a perfect source. Um, they said of Christ in the New Testament, he's one who spoke with authority. A Course in Miracles gives you, if once you get, at least I can only speak for myself here. When I got that this is true, like I'm not willing to ever question it anymore, it gives you a tremendous certainty that there is something called Father, Mother, God. You are a child of that, a creation of that, a perfect reflection of that. So when the Course says Father, it's referring to the capital S self, and you might say you're a lowercase s self, but the two are so intimate you can't even say capital or lowercase. The Course doesn't use the word soul, and it purposely says we're not going to use this term because of the connotations you may have around it, but it definitely uses the word spirit. So God is spirit, you are a spirit, and I hope that makes you more comfortable with the G word. It's not a man on the cloud. God is spirit, which is formless in A Course in Miracles. A miracle, which we'll have to, spend weeks explaining, a miracle in A Course in Miracles is a sudden shift into invisibility. So what is one way to understand source? Invisible, meaning not seen with your bodily eyes, but seeable, knowable, but not through your body's eyes. A Course in Miracles teaches, above all else, I want to see. So vision is the essence of it, awareness, consciousness. Your consciousness is the essence of it. So it's a return to that, or return to who you truly are. So God the Father or Mother, and then the sonship. That's the creation of God, the children of God. That's us. And that is the Christ, not as Jesus, who's a not easily defined. Let's leave it at that for now. But when we use the word Christ here, we're just saying all of us as God's child, a perfect creation with absolutely no disharmony whatsoever. Great. Hi, Emily, who said, glad I was able to make it. Thank you for doing this. It's been a few weeks since I've done the lessons. At some point, would it be beneficial to reset and start over, or just pick up where I left off? Here is a very important teaching in A Course in Miracles. I was saying there's Father, there's sonship, which is us, you, and then there's the Holy Spirit. The Course would absolutely say, ask the Holy Spirit. So what is that? It's your higher, wiser mind. And you always, once you get in touch with it, you stay in constant contact with the capital A answer. It's the answer to all other questions. So if you're not sure what to do, go within. A good formula in A Course in Miracles is stop, look, and ask. So I don't know, should I start from the beginning? Should I continue with the current lesson? Stop, look. Well, my mind is questioning something. Go to spirit and say, you can close your eyes and call her whatever you want. Just God, should I start from the beginning or should I continue? You don't even have to say should, right? Because we don't like that word always. Is it wise? That's healthy. Is it wise to start from the beginning or is it wise to continue where I am? Then receive the answer. Number 8 here, revelation in A Course in Miracles. Revelation is not a two-way street. In A Course in Miracles, you don't tell God how it is, right? That's the arrogance of the ego. In A Course in Miracles, God tells you how it is, and if you're humble enough, you listen, and you learn to listen. In A Course in Miracles, you learn to listen. So that's probably, I'd like to think, the best answer to should you start from the beginning or not. Yeah, I think that's the only answer that could be given there because everybody's learning situation is unique and only your inner guidance can really give you that answer. Yesh said, where do I find these recordings? Where should I start if I'm a newbie? So there's many ways to approach A Course in Miracles. I will be posting these classes that we're doing on YouTube afterwards, and you can find them on our website. As far as where to start with the course, get the book and go to acim.org and just start exploring, the website. I would just start reading parts of it, look at the introduction to the workbook, start reading the beginning of the manual for teachers, kind of dabble in the text, just start getting familiar with it, have it in your life to some degree. And then I do recommend A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. And then generally it's good to be in A Course in Miracles study group. You can go to Miracles Distribution Network, I think it's called, Miracles Distribution Center or Network. There's Course in Miracles study groups all over the world, but you could consider this one of them while we're doing these classes. And this is definitely going to be a consistent way to stay connected with ACIM teachings. But the main thing is to go through the workbook lessons. Esme.
Yeah, I'm one of those people who has an issue with both things you brought up, which is the religiosity of it
Yeah.
and the masculine pronouns.
Sure.
And as you're going through it and I see the sunship and I'm already triggered. Do you think that my question is, do you think that this was a very intentional choice? Do you think that this was the channeler, going through the channel's mind? This was what came through. Do you think that this is maybe like there's a kind of it just doesn't matter, or like what's your perspective on that?
Sure. I mean, honestly, my book, The Sutras on Healing and Enlightenment, was written in like 2000 to 2003, somewhere in there. And I was using masculine pronouns, honestly, only because that's how we wrote even in 2000. We just weren't as conscious. We made a lot of progress in 20 years, towards honoring gender and inclusivity. So honestly, we're just a more mature audience than when the course was written back in the 70s, where nobody was really conscious of this. So is a channel influencing what comes through him or her? Absolutely, I do believe that. Helen Schuckman was a psychotherapist. She also had a background in Christian Science. And anybody who studied Christian Science, which I definitely have, you'll see Christian Science overtones in this. So the message, when spirit who communicates for all time filters through a certain person, they're filtering through that person's ecology, to use a neurolinguistic programming term, right? Like if you're in the field of psychology, which Helen Schuckman was, you're going to get a lot of psychological terms in here. So I would say it is what it is, but any part of us that would have an issue with the way it's written, which I did, you can learn to listen to what's called the Holy Spirit. But again, I give you synonyms. So you can say the higher, wiser mind, the voice for source, the voice for God. Ask that to help you through this issue, because anytime we get triggered, it's always our ego, and that could always be cleared. I just became really at peace when I look at the course and it says God. I'm like, I know what you mean. When it says Father, I'm like, I know what you mean. It doesn't bother me at all. But you can tell from the fact that we're talking about it so much, I'm very sensitive to that idea because spirituality has to be inclusive. Like you can never tell somebody they couldn't know peace, bliss, love, joy, and healing and oneness. So I hope that helps, Esne.
Perfect.
But
Thank you.
yeah,
Yeah.
also the course isn't for everybody. So the model of the school, take what you like, leave what you don't.
Well, I've
Um,
heard so many good things about it, so I really want to try. So thank you for explaining that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I would just say, speaking to myself, I'm not going to say this to you because it might sound rude. Get over it. Um, I said that to myself. I'm like, just really, it's too valuable of a teaching. And the other thing that turned me off, like I mentioned, was people who weren't very far along in the spiritual path who were teaching this. And I'm like, oh, if that's what the course makes you, I'm not interested. But that was a very limited sample of Course in Miracles people. Once I really started meeting people who are really into this and taking the time with it, I'm like, oh, this is priceless stuff. Great, thank you. Hinda said, could you please share the name of the psychotherapy process book? So it's called A Course in Miracles. Um, the course now has a combined volume. I have like one of the really old original ones, which is 3 books without the supplements. So you can get the supplements separately, but if you buy the newest version of the book, like within the past 10 or 15 years, the supplements are part of the book. The supplement I was referring to is called Psychotherapy, Purpose, Process, and Practice. And again, it's not only for psychotherapists, because the course teaches we're all each other's psychotherapists, right? We're all helping each other to heal our minds. Um, Great. Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Clarified that. Monica said, ACDC's road manager said, God is the blanket we throw over the mystery to give it shape. Beautiful. Okay, thank you. And Mary said, if there is no answer, question mark. You mean like if you ask spirit and you don't get an answer? How do you distinguish between ego voice and higher, wiser, analytical adult? Good. In A Course in Miracles, when you ask the question, realize the ego will always answer first. That's its arrogance. It poses questions, but never really can give an answer, but it tries to give an answer. When you ask, like if you say, who am I? Like, think about that for a moment as an example. The most powerful question you could ask in spirituality, who am I? The ego is going to try to answer. The ego is always wrong in A Course in Miracles. Not sometimes right, it's always wrong. So one way to look at, is it spirit or ego? Actually start thinking about the language you primarily speak in your head. God doesn't only speak English or Spanish or whatever. The answer is universal. The Course says, how come the ego seems louder than the voice for spirit, the voice for God? And it basically says it's not, it's just that you're putting so much attention on it. It's actually all you're seeing. The example I give for that is, here's a water bottle. Imagine if I close one eye and look at like this. Like, the world is so dark and it's so limited. I'm focused on the wrong place. So the Course teaches that when you hear the answer for God, it speaks with overwhelming appeal. So a main way to understand if it's the voice of God or the voice of ego is how you feel, your emotions. So God is love. And when you have thoughts that are aligned with love, like I am love, like that thought would be aligned with love. I am love. You are love. That feels good, right? You are peace. I am peace. But what if I said something like, you're just a sinner, you're going to go to hell, you shouldn't even be here tonight because I'm better than you? That would clearly be ego, right? So listen to how it makes you feel inside. And when it feels truly joyful, peaceful, blissful, just right, then you know it's true. But it takes time, it takes practice to learn to listen to that voice. And usually, because we're more removed from it than we may realize, it's going to give you answers you're not ready to accept yet. When I first heard that voice, one of the first times, I said, how do I heal my girlfriend way back when in my early 20s? I said, how do I heal her of ulcerative colitis? I was in Chinese medical school and trying to figure out how to heal the world. And the voice said, she's already healed. I'm like, no, she's not. She's clearly sick. And then the voice like, she's already healed. So it won't argue with you, but it will repeat itself usually one time over. And then it just lets you eventually figure out it was right. So it's sometimes easier to listen to that voice going higher up So don't necessarily listen to your heart. That's right now for most people too full of pain. I mean, eventually it gets clear and it's a perfectly reliable source, but don't listen to your heart or your mind. That's, you might call that the lower self, the human self. Turn higher inwards and up and literally ask and receive. You have to get quiet and don't expect the answer to come instantly. But anytime you ask the question, the answer is given. A Course in Miracles is totally clear that anytime you ask a question, the answer is given. Any request you have, it's granted you, but not necessarily in the way that you would expect it and never in a way that would cause more fear. So I hope that helps. Linda said, can you speak to the or any relationship association of A Course in Miracles and Jesus? Well, I said I'm going to let you figure out who's given us A Course in Miracles, but the voice that is claiming to be the one who's speaking in A Course in Miracles is claiming to be Jesus. I think his name was probably Yeshua, but there you can't read this book and not conclude anything else unless you want to say somebody is faking, pretending to be Jesus. So in A Course in Miracles, it explains, who is Jesus and what is his role. It talks about the crucifixion and it revisits the crucifixion and says, we didn't want to talk about it in the beginning because we didn't want to scare you, but let's look at it now and help to understand it. And literally, Yeshua in A Course in Miracles is saying, like, for instance, in the New Testament, it says that Judas betrayed Jesus. In A Course in Miracles, Jesus says, Judas didn't betray me. I can't be betrayed. Judas was a brother, like any other child of God. So the voice that's speaking is claiming to be Jesus. But I wasn't going to go there tonight to only say, kind of figure it out for yourself. If you're studying the course, keep an open mind, because is it Jesus or is it the Holy Spirit? Yes. um, the Holy Spirit is the voice for God within all of us. You have it in you, I have it in me. There really isn't a you and a me. It's just all one collective consciousness. We're all one big mind together in love. And there's a voice for God that's there. The role of the Holy Spirit in A Course in Miracles is to help those who feel separate from Source to feel one with Source again. It's the voice for God that can see your errors but doesn't believe in them, corrects your errors, and lovingly brings you back to truth. Learning to listen to that voice is everything. And if that voice says, yes, trust that this is Jesus, go for it. If that voice says, no, don't see it as Jesus, then don't. The reason I say it that way is in A Course in Miracles, it says, is reincarnation so? And it says, strictly speaking, no, because you've never been a body once or many times. You've never actually been a human being. But it says, if the Holy Spirit encourages you to keep your belief in reincarnation, keep it. If it tells you to let it go, let it go. It's always about listening to the higher, wiser mind and letting go of the stuff that we made up. So I hope that helps. But yeah, don't trust me on what I say or what even you think you understand from the course. Let it teach you to listen to that voice. Mary said, how about toxic positivity and true loving answer? Well, in A Course in Miracles, we have, and we can unpack this, over all these classes. It takes a long time to teach all this. There's the teaching about perception. You have wrong perception, you have right perception, and then you have true knowledge. So when we talk about toxic positivity, what we're doing actually in toxic positivity is your ego has made a nightmare. It's called ego's nightmare. It's all negativity, right? And especially the ego's nightmare, negative perceptions. Nobody loves me, everybody hates me, I got attacked, I'm vengeful, all that pain that a lot of people are in. Then we shift the ego to what's called the ego's happy dream. And that actually is a form of toxic positivity. It's when you start spiritualizing your perceptions. In yogic philosophy, we call it the spiritual ego, right? And other spiritual traditions talk about how aspirant spiritual people, those on the path, start changing their mind from all the negativity to all the positivity. The beauty of A Course in Miracles is it goes beyond the positive perceptions. However, we need to understand the place, especially in the field of hypnotherapy or NLP, from getting our clients to go from, let's say, I'm angry, I hate everybody, to I'm loving and I'm kind to everybody. That I'm loving and kind to everybody can definitely be a toxic positivity. But A Course in Miracles takes you beyond that to just being what you are. So think of it as pendulum consciousness, negative, positive, negative, positive. All the deep spiritual traditions say, don't get caught up in duality, go to your source. There is source, there is truth. You exist, you're real, you are the light of the world. That's not toxic positivity because it's not a philosophy. You are the light of the world. If that's true, then it's true. And it doesn't matter what you think. A Course in Miracles basically says, while you're thinking about your life, your real life is occurring simultaneously. Well, like right now in this moment, if you're worrying about how you're going to pay your bills, you made that up. Meanwhile, God's grace and gentleness and goodness is happening right in this moment. Pure peace is right here now, but you're making up silliness in your head. And even positive silliness is still a veil. So yeah, A Course in Miracles would never get you caught in toxic positivity. A true loving answer, as Mary said there, is the profound peace when you know it's true. When it's like the simplest things, just say internally, am I lovable? And don't answer the question yourself because you're not qualified to answer it, right? Because you're not your own creator. You turn to that which created you and says, do you love me? I had a student recently and he said he went inside and he asked, as I was encouraging, who am I? And the voice said, you are my beloved child in whom I'm well pleased. And he emailed me and he said, is that accurate? Is that true? I'm like, I think you're on the right track, right? So it's really good not to get caught up in words. In the Zen tradition, we're really big on not being attached to words and scriptures and text, to know there's a reality behind them that all the great traditions are pointing to. Okay, Sarah said, you know, it's God when your heart expands and you feel like you want to cry from deep gratitude. A Course in Miracles teaches it can be but my gratitude that I earn. So when you like wake up in the morning or any moment of life, you're like, I'm so grateful for my home, for my partner, for my health. That's it. It can be but my gratitude I earn. So when yes, and the Course teaches we've lost our ability to be truly grateful and want to nourish that again. Not that God needs our gratitude, but we need to learn to experience gratitude again. I feel lighter when I know it's God and heavy when ego. Basically, ego causes suffering. Ego is fear. It's the feeling of separation. In A Course in Miracles, there's one problem and one solution. The problem essentially is ego, and the solution is oneness. The problem that ego, what it does is it makes the illusion that you're separate from God, separate from peace, bliss, love, joy, and oneness. Ego tells you you're something that you're not, and it's always wrong, and it's always fear-based, and honestly, it is an attacking, murderous mind in A Course in Miracles. Even though somebody might look peaceful on the surface, the Course teaches underneath, and those of us who are hypnotherapists, we know most of us sit on rage, right? Do breath work or hypnotic regression with a client and see what's inside. The Course acknowledges you hold fury in your heart, even though it's subconscious and suppressed. But the Course, along with really good hypnotherapy, honestly, helps to bring that stuff to consciousness and just clear it away. Remember how A Course in Miracles begins. What is real cannot be threatened. What is unreal does not exist. Herein lies the peace of God. Toxic positivity is in the realm of unreal. All right. Ego is in the realm of unreal. So this is a return to truth. Basically, in A Course in Miracles, truth is. And the question is, well, what is that truth? And yeah, good to be humble to not say you really know, but to keep doing that inner search. Okay. Sharon said, I'm sorry I'm late. Thought it'd be started at 7. Oh, no problem. The recording within 24 hours will be posted on YouTube on the Institute of Interpersonal Hypnotherapy YouTube page, and we'll start posting these on the website. Lisa said, why is worrying about your bills silly? Well, it's understandable, right? I do. Like we all worry, is there going to be enough money? I'm not going to pretend I don't watch my mind do that. But why is it silly? A Course in Miracles, well, first of all, worry is fear. In A Course in Miracles, fear is of the ego, and fear is unjustified in any form, true or not true. Remember, in A Course in Miracles, thoughts are true or not true. is it true that fear is unjustified in any form? The Course teaches if you're having the human experience, you will experience fear and doubt, but there's no reason for it. You made that idea up in your head and you can give it to source. Honestly, every day I run a business, in this current economy, every day I'm in meditation, watching my mind go, what if the students don't come? What if like the money's not there? But it is silly because it's actually atheistic. It's the part of the mind that doesn't believe that in Judaism, God is Jehovah Jireh, which means your sole provider, that which always provides for you. A Course in Miracles says, I am safe wherever I go in this world. And it says, when the teacher of God is going to fulfill his or her mission, the money will always be there, not to gratify your ego, but to better help you fulfill the plan. You have a purpose and a mission and a reason for being here. When you do that one purpose, that one function, what you need to do it is always giving you. Again, true or not true. There's a part of the mind that will question this. That's why we need these teachings, because we are more immersed in ego than we think. There's something else worth acknowledging here in this very good question by Lisa. Why is worrying about your bill silly? Worrying is inverted imagination. When you worry about something, what are you actually doing in your mind? You're seeing what you don't want to happen. That is a creative force. When you worry, you see, oh God, I'm not going to have enough money to pay the bills. Now, what kind of emotion do you get from that thought? You get a negative emotion. That is telling you, your inner barometer saying, wrong thought, egoic thought. You made something up that caused you to suffer. But actually, A Course in Miracles says, you're not the victim of the world you see, you're inventing the world you see. And nothing happens to you, you're not somehow asking for on some level. You say, but I'm not asking to be poor. But you keep visualizing being poor with strong emotion. That's a formula for manifesting realities. And anybody who says your mind isn't powerful has no idea who you are. In A Course in Miracles, the mind is the force that creates universes. Think about empires and governments and corporations. What did that? Mind did that. You're extremely powerful. And the Course teaches most of us on this planet, or having the human experience, seldom ever remember how powerful we really are. So it's silly. That's my word, right? Of course, when I say it's silly, but it would actually say you're experiencing a form of upset unnecessarily. If you're not at peace, you've chosen wrongly. Let me give you a reference in A Course in Miracles that we used to always pull from in my class in Gainesville when we did this back in like 2005. Page 90, italics. So let's say you're worrying about money, right? A lot of us are in this current economy. I must have decided wrongly because I'm not at peace. Just take that in for a moment. Like, so tonight you can walk away much more peaceful. I must have decided wrongly because I'm not at peace. I made the decision myself, but I can also decide otherwise. I want to decide otherwise because I want to be at peace. I do not feel guilty because the Holy Spirit will undo all the consequences of my wrong decision if I will let him. I choose to let him by allowing him to decide for God for me. So I know there's masculine language, but really, if it bothers you in any way, and I'm saying that to everybody, self included, like, yeah, if we get over it, listen to what it's saying. If I'm not happy and at peace, I made the wrong decision. I can decide again. I want to decide again because I want to be at peace. I'm not going to feel guilty because I made the wrong choice. I will let my higher, wiser mind shift what I'm doing in my mind so that I can be truly at peace. So when you're worrying about money or politics or famine, like war, this stuff is out there. However, A Course in Miracles is so beautiful about keeping you safe and in alignment where you really don't experience that much. A Course in Miracles eventually through the lessons gets you where you say, I choose to spend this day in perfect peace. And eventually every single day gets to be that way. And again, even if you waver from that peace a little, you know how to get back to it really quickly, no matter how dark and how bad the external situation seems to be. But the more you realign with source, the outside world becomes so blessed that again, you're only in a space of gratitude. Okay. Sharon said, isn't the belief in separation the cause of most of our psychological disturbances? In A Course in Miracles, it is the reason for all psychological disturbances, the belief in separation. So there's a distinction in A Course in Miracles, excuse me, between making and creating. And I'll say this in a playful way, the ego makes shit up, spirit creates. So if you're having a psychological disturbance, essentially realize you made something up. And what's the one fundamental thing you made up? You're separate from God. That's really all it comes down to. When your entire being knows, because you've done these lessons so much, I am one with my source. I am a child of God. I and my Father are one. I am one with that which created me. And like it's not, in A Course in Miracles, God isn't after life. A Course actually says death accomplishes nothing. Salvation is found now, in this very moment, in this holy instant. So how do we get there? And I said we do a little meditation tonight, so let's do that before it gets too late. I'm going to read from you a little bit on a previous lesson. It's lesson 120, no, 121. And the lesson, which those of us who started from the beginning of the year just went through a couple days ago, is forgiveness is the key to happiness. Okay, so just take that in. Forgiveness is the key to happiness. That doesn't just mean forgive your dad for hurting you. Forgiveness is a constant experience. The Course teaches if miracles are not occurring, something has gone wrong. Miracles are natural. Forgiveness is meant to be natural. So we'll unpack forgiveness over these classes. And as a hypnotherapist, it's crucial to really get the idea, in the deepest way that the Course teaches. But forgiveness is the key to happiness. With that said, this at this point in the lessons, the wisdom is asking you to take like 15 minutes to a half hour to meditate on the ideas. It builds up slowly, but eventually it is asking you to spend some time, like time dedicated to salvation, to being free of suffering, and realize there's no sacrifice asked of you. The more time you give to source, to God, to spirit, it's the best investment you could ever make. So it says, begin the longer practice periods by thinking of someone you do not like. Okay, here we go. Miracles are interpersonal. You know what? We don't need to be in the screen anymore. We'll go back here. Great. So now you can make that full screen if you want or whatever. Begin the longer practice periods thinking of someone you do not like, who seems to irritate you or to cause regret in you if you overlook. I'm sorry, regret in you if you should meet him, one you actively despise or merely try to overlook. It does not matter what the form your anger takes. You probably have chosen him already. He will do. Or she, right? Just as God can be he or she, you can be mad at he or she. So think of somebody who's probably already in your mind that upsets you. In neurolinguistic programming, we have something called a visual squash. No, yes, but the one we'll use here is called a visual swish pattern, a visual swish, where he talked about negative perception and positive perception. And A Course in Miracles says you as a miracle worker, as a teacher of God, as a light worker, whatever you want to call yourself, hypnotherapist, if you are working to get someone out of the anger they have towards somebody else, the shift needs to occur. And it's a shift in perception from a negative perception to a positive perception, from seeing it wrongly to seeing it more accurately. Miracles are always interpersonal. And that's a huge reason why our school is interpersonal hypnotherapy. Because when you get to the root cause of why we're suffering, whenever you're upset about anything, look at your mind for the relationship at the root cause of all that. You're never upset for the reason you think. You think you're mad because of what's happening now on the news or whatever, or what that person did. But the mind is much more complex than that. So the Course in Miracles, essentially, it's not just about meditating on God the way a lot of spiritual traditions do. It actually asks us to apply the miracle, which is I'm going to shift from this wrong perception to this right perception. In NLP, a visual swish is we take the negative image and we swish it around until there's only a positive image. Keep that in mind. Now it says, and you can do this if you want. Now close your eyes and see him in your mind and look at him a while. So if you like, close your eyes and bring in the negative image of someone who's upsetting you. Try to perceive some light in him somewhere, a little gleam which you had never noticed. Try to find some little spark of brightness shining through the ugly picture that you hold of him. Look at this picture till you see a light somewhere within it. And then try to let this light extend until it covers him and makes the picture beautiful and good. Look at this change perception for a while and turn your mind to one you call a friend. Try to transfer the light you learned to see around your former enemy to him. Perceive him now as more than friend to you, for in that light his holiness shows you your Savior, saved and saving, healed and whole. Then let him offer you the light you see in him, and let your, quote, enemy and friend unite in blessing you with what you gave. Now you are one with them, and they with you. Now have you been forgiven by yourself. Do not forget throughout the day the role forgiveness plays in bringing happiness to every unforgiving mind, with yours among them. Every hour tell yourself, forgiveness is the key to happiness. I will awaken from the dream that I am mortal, fallible, and full of sin, and know I am the perfect child of God. It says son of God, but perfect child of God. So what's happening there, eyes open or closed, when you're not happy, when you're not at peace, what the course is teaching is you're doing something in your mind. You have made up some fantasy in there, which has nothing to do with reality. Think about, we were talking about, the course was talking about someone who upsets you, right? You only see the past. So think about, wow, he did that to me, past tense. When you see the picture of somebody hurting you, but they did that 10, 20, 30 years ago or 10 minutes ago, it's still the past. It's not what's happening now. So when the course says, bring that person to awareness, but this is one way to understand the miracle, be willing to see it differently, right? The course basically says, above all else, I want to see. Above all else, I want to see things differently. I don't want to see when I was, my dad was, he's a great guy, but when I was like 10 years old, he was angry one day and he threw me against the wall. Okay, so if I'm seeing my dad throwing me against a wall, that happened 40 something years ago, that's not my dad, and it's definitely not who God created. It is a memory, a fantasy, a perception in my mind that needs to be corrected. So what this little exercise did is say, all right, picture your dad, but can you see the light in him? Now expand that light. But then think about someone who's a friend that you really do love. Bring that in. And so it's kind of like an NLP visual swish where we're going from the negative to the positive, but you're not asked to hold the positive because that is a form of toxic positivity. You go from wrong perception to right perception to true knowledge. Who is the guy called my dad? Just another child of God, still innocent and still guiltless. That's what A Course in Miracles teaches, that you are still innocent and guiltless, and everyone you're upset with is still innocent and guiltless. Basically, that goes back to how the Course begins. What is real cannot be threatened. What is unreal does not exist. What does not exist is the make-believe in our head. In Sanskrit, those thoughts are called chit vrittis. And the state of yoga, oneness with source, salvation, liberation, oneness with God, yoga is that. And to get into that, the chit vrittis basically settle and the consciousness goes back into itself. I am spirit. When you're only spirit, pure consciousness with no mind, you can't be upset about anybody. You're not worrying, you're not afraid. Miracles are seen in light. You are light. Miracles are seen in light, and light and strength are one. Take that in. Miracles are seen in light, and light and strength are one. But how am I going to handle this financial situation? Come back to the peace and the strength that you are and the divine guidance. And literally, I'm totally aware of the current economy, right? I'm watching what it's doing to our school. I'm watching what it's doing to my savings. I'm not saying that's not out there and everything else we can mention. But if you practice these teachings, it just doesn't really matter, because what A Course in Miracles says is this, whatever you're thinking about, politics, economy, health, whatever, all this stuff cannot affect my function, cannot affect who I really am, has no ability to actually keep me from being at peace. But you have to take like a year to go through the lessons to where you've actually grasped that as a living reality. Or, of course, if you're in other spiritual traditions, you may have figured out how to be at peace no matter what. But really, if you haven't yet, do the lessons for sure. All right, let's go to any Q&A, and feel free to log off anytime you like. I'm not positive how long we'll go. Mary said, that is my next question. How to forgive yourself for the separation you came anyway to experience on earth? Well, Jonathan said, if you see unity as separate from separateness, you're still seeing separateness. Beautiful. So the idea that you came to earth, that you're on earth, is something to be forgiven as well, right? There's assumptions even in our questions, and realize whenever you're asking a question, you're in the ego. The ego is the questioning state of mind. And remember, the ego is always wrong. So there's usually something even inherently wrong in the question itself. But why did I come to earth to experience separation? You didn't. You're not actually on earth. You're not in a body. So a simple way to see it is this whole world is an illusion. But A Course in Miracles says to deny that you have a body and to deny this world is the improper use of denial. So to say it's an illusion, it's not here, is not quite accurate, but from A Course in Miracles perspective. But consider you're a spiritual being having a human experience. So why are you here? Well, why are you in time? In A Course in Miracles, the only purpose of time for a spirit is to help you to get out of time. It will utilize time to help you to get out of the idea that you're in time. But awakening shows you've never actually been in time and space, and you've never actually been separate from your source. So with that said, how do you forgive yourself? You don't really forgive yourself because your ego can't unravel itself. You learn to have a relationship with what the Course calls the Holy Spirit. And whenever you notice a thought that's bothering you, you don't ask for your symptoms to go away, and don't ask for your emotions to go away, because you made those. And if your mind made those symptoms, it would go against universal law to ask spirit to get rid of them. God, please heal my cancer. Let's say it's psychosomatic cancer. If your mind is making the problem, you can't ask God to get rid of the problem because your mind is making the problem. You have to ask to have your mind corrected. Miracles correct the errors that are in your own mind. So anytime you're upset about anything, whether it's separation because you came to earth or because you hurt someone or somebody hurt you, whenever you're upset, stop, look, see what you're doing, realize you're doing it. No one else is doing that to you. And then ask spirit for the miracle, for the correction of the error of thought, not for the change in your body or your behaviors or your life. Like if you're overeating, I had a student, he must have lost 100 pounds being a Course in Miracles student. He basically just realized, like, I have this behavior and it's emotionally driven and there's all these thoughts, but he started letting spirit correct the thoughts. Oh, I am lovable. I'm not alone. I'm a good person. Now his heart's more at peace. Now he doesn't turn the food to feel better. So when you're feeling like, God, I do feel separate from God, just practice turning within and say, is that true? Obviously, it's not true because it's causing suffering. What's the truth? And you let spirit correct the error in your mind. So miracles are mental. That's why I'm in the field of hypnotherapy and not Chinese medicine. Miracles are mental. They correct the errors in our minds. Okay. So how to forgive yourself. Forgiveness, while you're still needing it, in a sense, forgiveness is an illusion, by the way. It's A Course in Miracles says it's the most beautiful illusion heaven ever gave us, something like that, because it's the one illusion that corrects all the other errors that are in your mind. Eventually, you're not forgiving in the same way. What do you get to when it comes to what is forgiveness? Look at the word forgive. You are forgiving. You are meant to extend the kingdom, to extend light and love, to extend blessings, to make essentially the world a better place. You're meant to be part of the solution. So when you're forgiven, when you've forgiven yourself totally, all you want to do is give it away. That's the first lesson of the Holy Spirit we can go into in future classes, which is to have, give all to all. If you want, give it away. The universal law of giving and receiving. The Course teaches if you want something, give it away. The Course teaches ideas that are shared or strengthened. Ideas that are shared or strengthened. I'm sharing peace and love and bliss and joy. Why? Because I'm totally selfish, right? I want that for myself. So I'm finding ways to give it away. So if you want it, give it away. Um, so basically, when you have fully been forgiven, that's the atonement, the at one with Godment. When you're feeling that oneness, all you want to do is give it. But when you're not there, forgiveness is not necessarily giving, it is correcting. Forgiveness is a letting go. It's a, oh, I have a thought that makes me feel miserable. I don't want that thought. Holy Spirit, please show me another way to see it. So miracles always require some degree of humility to be willing to be wrong, right? So when you're questioning and you're feeling separate and upset, just, is that true? Do I want this? There must be another way to see it. Listen to the line on page 90 where it says, Holy Spirit, I'll read the exact words, but then I'll tell you how I say it. I choose to let the Holy Spirit by allowing him to just decide for God for me. I choose to let the Holy Spirit decide for God for me. Whenever I start my meditations, I basically say, Holy Spirit, choose for God for me. I'm letting my higher self, you can call the Holy Spirit your higher self if that makes you feel more comfortable, or your oversoul, or in hypnotherapy, we call it the superconscious mind. It's your higher, wiser, divine mind. You've got a subconscious, usually a neurotic inner child. You've got a conscious, usually a neurotic adult, but you do have a superconscious mind. And just go in and up and ask questions and receive answers. Let it correct errors and realize like it's there and that's its role and its job and it will always do it. Okay, cool. What else we got? Belinda said, when I was taught to pray, I was told to pray to God. But if I'm part of God, how am I supposed to pray on a connection? So you're part of it, but you're not your own creator, right? So consider that there's one big self, father, mother, like daddy, like mommy. Like imagine turning to someone like a child, turning to your parent and realize while you're one with that, you're not the whole of it. So one way to look at that theologically speaking is you're the same substance, but you're not the same quantity. You're the same quality. You're created in the image and likeness, but you're not your own creator. You could absolutely have communion with your creator. Prayer in A Course in Miracles is for the exact words, it's the primal form of communication between God and his children. And again, excuse the he word there, but it's you communicating with your source. And it can be as simple as, I love you, because you do, by the way. Even if you say you're atheistic or you're questioning, you do love. Like change the word God for love. You love love. You love the experience of love. And if you just say to love, I love you, then get quiet and receive an answer. It'll say, I love you too. If you say, I'm so grateful for you, you'll hear it say, I'm so grateful for you too. There really is a relationship there. And yeah, it's not just this formless field of emptiness. It's a living presence of guidance and love and wisdom and everything you'd ever want to experience. And it's not toxic positivity. The Course says it's just reality. Great. Thanks, Claudia. Great to see you. I'm doing very well. Thank you. Esne said, what is the positive function of the ego? In A Course in Miracles, there isn't one. There's no positive function of that which isn't real. A Course in Miracles, so if God didn't create it, it doesn't exist and it has no value. There's what's valuable and what's valueless in A Course in Miracles. And as we look at the stages of spiritual growth in A Course in Miracles, you are learning to sort out, that's A Course in Miracles term, to sort out the real from the unreal, valuable from valueless. Spirit is valuable, love is valuable, God is valuable, wisdom is valuable. Make believe, not valuable. Ego, not valuable. God created what's valuable. God didn't create what's not valuable. There's no positive function that which isn't created by God. In the definition of miracles, chapter 1, verse 24, it said, miracles enable you to heal the sick and raise the dead because you made sickness and death yourself and therefore can abolish both. You are a miracle capable of creating in the likeness of your own creator. Everything else is your own nightmare and does not exist. Only the creations of light are real. the ego is your own nightmare and it actually doesn't exist. So don't even try to understand it. Even though the Course of Miracles has hundreds of pages helping you to understand the ego, it essentially says don't try to understand ego dynamics because the ego is insane. Paramahansa Yogananda, the great yogic saint, he said, your ego is your masquerading self. It's not your real self. It's a self pretending to be something that you're not. And it always is wrong. And it always causes suffering because it's not, the ego thinks it created you. It's its own creator. That's how insane it is. Instead of saying, I'm a creation of God, it actually thinks it created itself. There's no positive benefit to someone who didn't create themselves thinking they know what they are rather than letting source tell them. That's Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's very, I'm listening and I'm absorbing. My thought is though, like God made illusion, and
Not in the Course of Miracles.
I always hear that the earth is it's kind of like it's sort of like a school, right? So it's like God created the earth and created illusion
Not
in
in the
order,
Course of Miracles.
right? Okay. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know what you're saying because that's what most of us kind of think. Of course, I'm only like, teaching Course of Miracles, not even saying I'm right or anything. But what it's saying here is God didn't create the earth. The Course teaches God did not create the world that you see with your bodily eyes. Remember, there's evolution and then there's creation. God's creations are eternal and unchanging. Nothing you see with your bodily eyes are eternal and unchanging. God doesn't create illusions. God only creates like him herself. Only extensions of light are real. The creations of God are eternal. So an illusion, think about a mirage. You're driving down the road and you're like, oh my God, there's water there. I'm going to crash my car. And you start having a panic attack and you're calling your spouse. You're like, what am I going to do? There's water in the road. And you start calling the police. And now next thing you know, you've got a task force. There's actually no water in the road, right? You made up a whole story about something that's not even there. When you have an out of body experience and you walk through a wall, which you can do, you float right through a wall, you will see there's nothing actually there. Quantum physics tells you what you're seeing is actually 99% empty space, right? What we see with our bodily eyes is not God's creation, according to A Course in Miracles, but actually according to quantum physics, right? It is a big illusion. What is that song by Styx? If you think your life is complete confusion, well, you're really not to blame. Just remember it's a grand illusion, and deep inside, we're all the same. So what that lesson that I said, focus on someone who's bothering you, this upset you, and find a point of light in them, and then expand that light till that's all you see. Now you're seeing creation. Only the creations of light are real. Everything else is your own nightmare and does not exist. So we are much more caught in illusion than we think. And the teaching that Earth is a school is not A Course in Miracles teaching, actually. It seems like there's lessons to learn, but the only lesson is love, but you already know what love is. And that's the only, so really you could say A Course in Miracles is about unlearning. You're unraveling the ego. And once it's unraveled, you don't need to build it back up. The Course in Miracles lessons, part one dissolves your ego, and part two reestablishes you in spirit, but not reestablishing you with a positive ego. It just gets rid of what's false. And essentially, you see with your bodily eyes, oh, I'm not seeing absolute reality with my bodily eyes. I'm seeing a temporary, changing, perceptual world. The Course actually teaches projection makes perception. It's very deep. Projection makes perception. First, you see it inside, then you project it out there, then you think you see it out there. But you're not actually seeing reality. You're seeing what you project. For instance, I'll use me as an example. This body is an example. If I said to each person here, describe Matthew, I would get, there's 60 people in the room right now, I would get 60 different interpretations. Which one's right? You're all wrong. Because perception is wrong. So if you say, oh, he's nice, oh, he's arrogant, like you're both wrong. The only true thing you could say is perfect, innocent child of God, perfect being of light and love. Even if he doesn't know it, perfect being of light and love, only the creations of light are real. So yeah, you're really not here to learn anything. and you're really not even here, according to A Course in Miracles. You just think you are. It seems like you are, but seems is the key word. Great. iPhone said, why would I see someone who did terribly wrong by me as a friend and forgive him? Because it's beneficial for you. That would make it okay for people to do wrong. I understand that it would be okay, would be good for myself, but I have not been able to forgive those kinds of people. Any ideas how to overcome it? Absolutely. So yeah, but the first part of the question is, why would you do it? Forgiveness is the most practical thing you can do. It is the most beneficial thing you can do, and it does not condone. Well, first of all, like I said about Mary's question, the question itself could have fallacious, if that's the right word, erroneous ways of asking the question. So when you say, like you said, it would make it okay for people to do wrong. That's not actually what A Course in Miracles teaches about forgiveness. So realize we don't necessarily know what forgiveness is. And in A Course in Miracles, in the Song of Prayer, it talks about something called forgiveness to destroy, meaning you don't actually understand what forgiveness is. Your version of it is actually an attacking version of it. So, we can talk about this for hours over future classes because we will. You can't understand A Course in Miracles without understanding forgiveness. Forgiveness completely overlooks the past. If somebody hurt you, however many minutes or days or years ago, that behavior doesn't exist anymore, but you're not forgiving the behavior. You're not even forgiving the other person. You're actually forgiving yourself. You can only forgive yourself because thoughts don't leave their source. When you're in your head going, I hate him, I don't like what he did, you're suffering, not him, right? We talk about anger is like drinking poison while trying to poison someone else. Forgiveness is always self-forgiveness. It's a correction of the errors in your mind. When you do, and you say, all right, I'm going to stop seeing him the way I project stuff onto him, because that's all you're doing when you're upset. I'm going to see the perfect child of God as God created him, and he's still innocent and guiltless in his essence. Why is that practical and beneficial? Because you will return to love, and love is the inner barometer to say true or not true. Somebody asked me recently in an email about a student about boundaries versus, I think the person might be here tonight, boundaries versus there's another B word. Who is there?
Buttons.
Thank you. Thanks, Krishna. Boundaries versus buttons. Boundaries are basically, I know who I am as spirit and I am pure love. And like I started the class, please only be loving and harmonious if you're in my space, right? Like only don't play anything else. Like I'm not willing to go to anything that's of ego. It has to be of love. So that makes you so clear of what your standard is. Now, if that person comes back to you after you forgave him and he's still doing that, you are so clear about your healthy boundaries because you're like, I choose to spend this day in perfect peace, right? And you don't have the power to make me feel bad. Only I can make me feel bad. Okay, so we can talk about it for hours, but I hope that helps. The idea to overcome it, for just to finish up the question there, is realize it's the most practical thing you could do. It's the most beneficial thing you could do. And you're not actually, well, first of all, really be open to what is true forgiveness and realize it's helping you to not suffer internally and to not attract that anymore. If you look at negativity that occurs in your life as a form of karma, right? Law of attraction, stuff like, you cause certain things in motion, now that stuff's in your life. The law of grace supersedes the law of karma. The law of grace supersedes the law of karma, meaning if you let divine grace into your mind, it will break your karmic patterns. Miracles in A Course in Miracles free you from the past in the present to create a better future. Miracles free you from the past in the present to create a better future. So why would I want a better future? Goes without saying. How do I get that? I forgive. I release the past. You think it's asking you to sacrifice your defenses, but love needs no defense. That's pure Course in Miracles. Dan.
Okay, sorry, I'm traveling right now, so I'm not putting my camera on. Can you hear me
No
okay
problem.
though?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. I have so many questions. Thank you so much for doing this. I've been meaning to get into it, and now I have an excuse to really get into it.
Yeah, my
Um,
pleasure.
Okay, so I heard, I'm not sure if this makes sense, but I heard before something about, um, I guess the idea was if you're not awake, you're like operating under the law of karma, and then you have free will when you awaken,
Mhm.
basically, because then you're kind of like consciously creating. I don't know how it was explained, it was a while ago, but do you have anything to add to that? Like the
Sure.
perspective from the
Yeah.
Course of Miracles?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I hear you. So when we're in the ego, we're in karma. Your ego is basically making your karma. The mind is still very powerful, whether you realize it or not, and your ego is made out of mind, right? What is that thing talking in your head that's all I, and pissed off and upset? That's basically, the ego. And it does make, the word wouldn't be create. If it's the ego, it's making karma. You're keeping you caught in negative patterns. You always have free will. However, when you choose to see it differently through the lens of spirit, not through the lens of ego, as you keep letting go of ego and aligning with spirit, you're aligning with not karma, but with dharma. Dharma is your purpose, your mission, your function. Your function is to be the light of the world, to help to be part of the solution for healing. And when you forgive and let go of ego and karma, you're basically aligning with spirit and dharma. Remember, miracles free you from the false sense of lack. So they shift you out of a fear-based lack universe into one of grace and goodness and harmony and benevolence. So I hope that helps. I know you have more questions, Diane, but I see a bunch in the chat pod I'm going to work to cover. So thank you for that one.
Okay, I think I got it. So
Okay.
eventually
Yeah.
we do have free will. That is like a thing.
No, you do have free will, period. Because God never changed her mind about you. You always have free will. But karmic patterns essentially are only internally self-generated. So if you're like, why do I keep losing my job? Why do I keep losing my job? The one common denominator is you. But what is it about you? It's your mind. Only the mind needs to be healed. In A Course in Miracles, only the mind needs to be healed. So if you think you're in a karmic pattern of suffering, you have the free will right now to choose again. That's why what I was reading in page 90 is if I'm upset, I have the ability, the free will to choose again. So yeah, you'll experience more of your freedom from karma as you keep realigning with spirit. Great. All right. Thanks, Dan. Belinda said, so hypnosis can get rid of ego. Yes. The reason I utilize hypnotherapy as the basis of my life's work is because I knew a lot of these teachings before I found a career. And then I was like, how do I clear the blocks to the awareness of love's presence? I can't do it as a religious scholar. I can't do it through Chinese medicine or Reiki or massage. I can do it through hypnotherapy. So the simple answer to that is yes. I highly recommend everybody who hasn't read my new book, Facilitating Enlightenment. It's all about how hypnotherapy can clear the ego. Jonathan said, I can apply projection creates perception on an overlay level atop the perceptual world, like how people imagine circumstances that aren't there, or how you just describe karmic patterns. But brought to the logical extreme, would this idea include all perception and cause everything to disappear in normal waking life, like advanced yan stages? Or, yeah, it's different ways to transliterate gyan there, but I'm going to say it the way I learned in India, gyan. So stages of wisdom or awakening. Yes, on some level, absolutely. Miracles are seen in light. So when you go deep into your own soul, into God, into spirit, perception does drop away. In deep, so that state is called samadhi. And in samadhi, body and mind drop away. So can you experience the absolute in deep meditation? The Course in Miracles says absolutely, but it also says don't try to hold on to that all the time, right? Achieving like the highest level you're capable of isn't always going to happen. Like right now, I'm clearly looking through eyes, experiencing computer screen and talking. It's not just only God, but it is God. Like the divine is right here now. But to deny that there's a body in a world, as I mentioned earlier, is an improper use of denial. But yes, perception is always false. And there's no, I think there's another question that's going to come up as well. But you said logical extreme. In A Course in Miracles, there's no degrees. It's true or not true. It's peace or not peace. It's love or fear. It's perception or it's knowledge. The word you use there, gyan, means knowledge in Sanskrit. Gyan or knowledge or wisdom, the experience, the knowledge, the experience of the divine, it's either that or it's make believe. There's no degree. In A Course in Miracles, there are no small upsets. They're all equally disturbing to your peace of mind. So, yes, the perceptual world in A Course in Miracles is exactly that. It's a perception, it's not a reality. There is a reality, but we're all so caught up in perception, we need a very specialized teaching to get out of it. All right. Sharon said, I recently read that remaining angry, resentful cuts off the flow of love. Absolutely. Your grievances hide the light of the world within you. Your attack thoughts are keeping you from experiencing God. And we're all just so used to, oh, anger is just the way to be. I'm driving on the road, I get angry. At that moment, you're not experiencing divine bliss and grace and wisdom. You're not happy, and you could always choose again. Sharon, go ahead.
Well, hi. So my question is back to what Diane was asking, because Diane talked about when you're asleep, you're not consciously creating. You're sort of in the ego and not conscious.
Sure.
Versus, being awake. And in my mind, I related that to sort of being dissociated or not fully present, how we're just sometimes sleepwalking. And so I wondered if you could speak to that, if the Course of Miracles says anything about how to get out of that state of not being fully present.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely does. The lessons are really the way to help to make that happen, but the text does talk about the detour into fear, the experience where you are basically asleep. It says, it quotes the Bible, and it says, in the Bible, it says, a deep sleep fell upon Adam, but nowhere does it speak about a collective reawakening. So the Course does acknowledge you're asleep, right? That Adam and Eve, that's obviously metaphorical for being souls who chose, and it is a choice, to go into the detour into fear or a long guilt trip. The detour into fear is a long guilt trip. You're essentially asleep. So we like to say in the field of hypnotherapy, I'm not here to put you to sleep. I'm here to wake you up. All right. So what does the Course say about waking up? Well, essentially, it says you've got to go through the lessons because that's the context of how the Course is helping you to get free. And every lesson will help you to be more present. The first lesson start by saying, nothing I see means anything. So don't even think like what you're perceiving is actually reality. It helps you to let go of this fantasy that you make up in your mind that keeps you from being totally present. Eventually, it teaches you how to embrace the holy instant and the immense importance of now. It says the only way for you to understand at this moment of your, understanding, to understand the divine is God only exists in the now. But we understand past, present, future. God doesn't deal with time. Time is just something we made up. Spirit is just eternally now. And yes, if you go through the lessons, and it says nothing can be accomplished with an untrained mind. So as you learn to train your mind to be present, like every moment, one of the lessons says, creation's gentleness is all I see. And when you're living in every moment in grace like that, where you're just seeing God and everything, you would never want ever again to go back into that being asleep, seeing unreality. The Course says, there's nothing more satisfying than reality itself. There's no sacrifice asked of you. You're only letting go of a nightmare to be in a state of pure grace. And yeah, that is present in every single moment. Thanks, Sharon. Lisa said, that doesn't work with grandparent alienation. When a daughter-in-law bans her husband, your son, from his mother for no reason other than being the queen of her family, this destroys innocent grandchildren and grandparents. And Lisa said, I'm a life coach and my niche is grief in parents of estranged adult children and alienated grandparents to find inner peace. I hear you. And respectfully, just think about almost anyone else could write the same thing from their grievance, right? Like you're making the exception for grandparent alienation. Others could do it for parental child abduction, or for murdering a child, or for kidnapping, right? We have lots of reasons to have exceptions to, I'm going to use Course in Miracles terms, God's plan for salvation, right? So I call it in our school the yeah, but. So if I say you could be perfectly at peace, you could be part of a solution where all beings will be free of suffering. If you say, yeah, but you're allowed to, yet A Course in Miracles doesn't have that exception. God's plan for salvation doesn't have that exception. So I like to meet A Course in Miracles with deep humility to say, if I argue with A Course in Miracles and say, no, that can't be, like I like to say to my clients, if I'm arguing with God, one of us is wrong, and it's probably not God. So I would just say there is another way, this Course of Miracles, there is another way to see that, right? So what you do, it's not like I'm not saying that there aren't these things people do. Course of Miracles says on the human level, it's absolutely tragic. Maybe not absolutely, but it says like it's just downright tragic what we do to each other. But we don't want that to keep happening anymore. And the Course is essentially saying there is an answer to these problems, but only if we accept that answer. If we, yeah, but the answer for any reason, we're allowed to, but it will rob us of not only peace, but healing. And one more thought before I go to you, Lisa, there. The Course teaches minds are joined, and it only takes one person to heal a relationship. So the practical nature of forgiveness is grandparent alienation, like I have the right to be angry. A Course in Miracles says, would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? The return to happiness actually shifts the energy, shifts the karma. Not only do you get to be happy and peaceful and free, but people change when you do. It only takes one person to heal a relationship. Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, I just want to talk to that because you were saying that, forgive yourself, return to love. I have hundreds of this is a global epidemic right now. This isn't just a little thing going on. There's millions. It's going on by the millions right now. And we think it's social media causing it. But anyways, you have a grandparent that forgives, sends forgiveness, sends the forgiving vibes out. Can't talk to the daughter-in-law, can't talk to the son, can't talk to the grandchildren. 100% banned. But every day meditates and sends the forgiveness out, sends the spiritual forgiveness out, and tries to feel love. And then is walking down the street one day, sees the family, and they cover the kids' faces and they cuss and get away from us, or we're calling the police. And it just keeps going on and on and on. So no matter how many times you forgive, no matter how much love you're pouring out spiritually, it doesn't end because the other people don't end it. And then the children grow up with these perceptions in their mind, and now they're going to have childhood trauma as adults. They're going to be worried about their feelings as adults because they thought they loved their grandmother and then they were told they can't.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. And believe me, I'm having the human experience too. So people come to my mind as you're talking about, well, they didn't change. I've chosen forgiveness. I've chosen love. But I've done that just because I sincerely just want to be at peace. So when I hear in your voice, I hear you're angry, and I hear you say, try to love. So yes, and you keep experiencing it out there. The miracle doesn't change what's out there necessarily. The Course says the effects of the miracle are not always observable. They are not necessarily going to change because of you. However, what do you really want when it comes down to it? We do a process in our school from Connie Ray Andreas called core transformation. And we just say, well, why do you want that? 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 Eventually, you're going to say, I just want to be at peace. The miracle just allows you to have that. It doesn't necessarily change what's out there directly, just like healing your body. Let's say you have a physical health issue and you go, all right, forgiveness is going to heal that. Maybe, because the effects of the miracle are not always observable. But okay, I'm dealing with a health. I wrote a book called Peace Under All Circumstances. All right, I'm dealing with a health issue, but I choose to be at peace. I'm divorced. I'm dealing with an ex-wife. I choose to be at peace. It doesn't matter what she does. It honestly, at this point, it doesn't matter because it's out there. But in here is peace, light, love, joy, peace, oneness. And I keep putting my attention on that constantly throughout the day. I'm a monk at heart, in case you don't know me well. And The one thing about a monk is someone who thinks about God every second of the day. So because I only want God, no one outside of me has the ability to keep me from that. And that's all that really matters. So thanks, Lisa.
Yeah, I think the problem is you're trying to give your grandchildren peace, and you can't. You can only get the peace within yourself, and you can't give it to your grandchildren. And I think that's why it's so painful for so many.
Sure. Well, also, you can't give what you don't have, right? So if there's any part of your mind, which there is, lovingly there is, right? A part of your mind that's not totally at peace, find that within yourself. Remember, it's impossible not to teach. In A Course in Miracles, you're always teaching. And if you're angry about grandparent alienation, you are teaching anger, but you're trying to give them peace. That's why forgiveness is the most practical thing you can do. So I don't know when you'll talk to them again, but when you're a different person, they do respond differently. Maybe not the way you want, but that I want is something that can be dissolved, right? That I want is the ego, right? So they should be that way. Just forgive that. So forgiveness is a deep concept, and I'll be happy to go into it. We're at the 2-hour mark. Let me just read what's here, see if we can start to wrap it up, just to honor everybody. Christy said, my family has been doing nightly thankfulness journaling each night at dinner. Anyone who may be in our home during that time is asked to participate. They simply add their name to the pages. I'm sorry, this is kind of long at 9. I'm sorry, Christy. I'm gonna have to skip that right now. Let's see. Okay, thank you. I think we got to start to wrap it up. So apologies for not covering that one. Any last kind of quick questions you're sharing, and then let's wrap it up at the 2-hour mark. Christy, if you'd like, bring that up next time, please. When we have more time, I'll be happy to cover it. All right. Thank you all. Yeah, any last quick questions you're sharing? Awesome. All right, I appreciate it. Sharon said, this is a short one. The law of seasons and cycles. To everything, there's a season and a time and a purpose. Sometimes it takes time or a season or a cycle for a miracle. Don't lose faith. Just remember, miracles are not bound by time. Love doesn't wait upon time. It waits upon invitation. All right. Esne, if it's kind of quick, let's go for it.
Is there any homework for us?
Start the lessons.
Yeah, how many lessons should we, like, is there any guidance?
1 a day. The course says only do 1 a day. So if you haven't started yet, literally just read the introduction to Course in Miracles lessons. It's like 1-page intro. And then to start lesson 1 and only do 1 a day. And trust it. Even if you don't agree with it, it even says, like, you don't have to agree with this. You might even actively rebel against it. It won't change the effectiveness. Just do it anyway. Awesome. Thank you. All right, great. Any other last questions or sharing before I wrap it up? And we'll be here next week, and I'll keep doing it as long as you keep showing up. All right, great. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Many blessings. And yeah, choose love and light. Good night, all.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good night.